The O2 Football Podcast. The voices of tomorrow, here today.
Hey guys, welcome back to the O2 Football Podcast. I'm Nathan. I'm joined today by Ole and Kieran.
You right?
Hello.
Today we have a special edition of the podcast as we interview Alan Tonge about his career, including all things Manchester United, Exeter City, his career-ending injury, and much more. Let's get into it.
Okay, so welcome, Alan. You're the first ever person to actually come onto the podcast. It isn't us three just bittering and going on about random stuff. So welcome. If you'd like to tell everyone a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. It's going back a long time. I'm getting older and older every sort of year that passes by. So seems to be a long time ago. I was coming out of school, went into United as an apprentice, stayed there for 3 seasons, 19, got moved on. Unfortunately, went down to Exeter City, stayed there till I was mid-20s. Unfortunately, I had a really bad injury to my back. And then from that, transitioned out, went to do a few bits and pieces, just trying to keep my hand in here and there. Eventually, I just found my way back into education, and I went back to do a degree. I was quite old at the time, 28 when I did mine, and I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made because it got me on a path and a journey into another area. So here we are, sort of 15, 16, 17 years later. I'm still teaching, still lecturing away, and just trying to just keep us upbeat and as happy as I can, like everybody else at the moment.
You've had a very interesting career, simply put. So we'll start off right at the start with Manchester United. And I have to open with this question. I saw that you claim to be Sir Alex Ferguson's first ever signing. I know Viv Anderson also claims the same. So do you want to tell us a bit about that? Yeah,
so, in a stereotypical, traditional kind of trivial pursuit question, Viv Anderson will be on there because he was the first signing that there was a fee paid for, that Sir Alex had recruited his first addition to his squad. But if you rewind a little bit, let's just go back a little bit to 1986 when Sir Alex arrived in November. I went on trial at the Christmas of that year, around the end of December, early January. And following that successful trial, Sir Alex offered me schoolboy forms and a 2-year apprenticeship, which I put pen to paper on. I think it was around mid-January, something like that. And I've still got the slip and the form to this day. So until anybody can prove me otherwise, I'm going to stick my flag in and say I was the first non-fee signing of Sir Alex's, and Viv can claim the first fee signing. How was that?
It's a very big claim to fame. I'm sure everyone would love to have that. But so how old were you when you actually did, first sign? And what was that like for you being so young to be, Sir Alex Ferguson? Obviously, he wasn't the big household name necessarily that he is now, but it didn't have the trophies under his belt as it did now. But still, massive achievement. How were you feeling? Yeah,
amazing, really. I mean, always had a flavour and some flavour of talent, from my schoolboy years and, coming through grassroots teams and playing in my town side and my county side. So I've always had that pedigree there. And how it used to work, Oliver, back then is they used to get scouts coming round to watch the grassroots game. I know that the game's very, very different now because of the age categories that have really shifted. And United had a school of excellence set up, but it was around 13, 14 years old before you went into a club to train, whereas these days you've got pre-academies, youngsters are going in at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, under 9s to start the sort of training side. So yeah, we had a scout come down to a county game to watch Greater Manchester play Cheshire. And after that game, it was a lad called Joe Brown, who was the youth development officer at the time, and a lad called Tony Collins. Unfortunately, we lost Tony over this last few weeks. They approached me, mum and dad, after the game and said, would Alan like to come down on trial? So that was, the sort of trial I was talking about over the Christmas period. And at the end of that trial, I played really well. It was quite a thrill. It was one of them situations where everything seemed to go right. I was down there for a week. Plenty of practice matches, lots of little training sessions. I was joining in with the reserves and things like that, even though I was only 15 years old. So, it was a massive, massive thrill that after that, they sort of offered me something that I knew that when I'd be finishing school and I'd completed my GCSEs, I'd be going into United to train full-time as an apprentice. So, yeah, so hugely exciting, Oliver. Massive achievement. I'm really so pleased because we're all United fans in the family. My dad, followed United right through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right up to the modern day. So it was a great thrill for him. And just one of them moments that, you can recall and reflect upon and just have a little smile and think, what an incredible feeling that was. Arriving home at the end of the trial week and saying to my mum and my dad, United have offered me schoolboy forms and an apprenticeship and they want to sign me.
Have you ever had a trial before that, or was that your first ever trial with a football club?
Yeah, I'd been down to Bolton. I'd been down to Bolton Wanderers. They wanted to sign me. I'd been down at the other side of Manchester, Man City. They offered me terms as well. So the advice back then, Oliver, I kept hearing don't sign anything. But it's difficult because like when United offer you something, it's a case of, well, it's my boyhood club, and I'm not going to say. I think I'll wait a season or two to see how it goes, but it's almost like give us the pen and sign us. So there was a few other clubs interested at the time, as there were with quite a lot of other young players in the grassroots system. So when United offered, it was like pass me the pen and let's go.
Obviously, playing football is a lot of boys' dreams growing up. So was that your actual aim? Did you always say, I want to be a footballer? Or was it up until the point where you got a trial, it was more just sort of a dream? And then when you started getting trials, it was like, this could actually be something?
It's a great question, Oliver, and something that probably I get asked quite a bit. And that is that, coming through the schooling system and, playing and, like I said, grassroots, county, town teams, and then going into clubs. I also had a reasonably strong educational and academic identity as well. I didn't mind school. I enjoyed school. I particularly enjoyed English, and my kind of background really was in, I really enjoyed writing stories and bringing stories to life, and and I enjoyed the different topics that we looked at GCSE. So bizarrely and a little bit strangely, like a lot of stereotypical footballers who kind of give up their education because they think, well, I'm going into football, so it doesn't matter. I kind of stuck at mine. So would I say I enjoyed football? Yes, but I had like another kind of interest and another sort of side to me as well that I didn't mind. So I kind of, I suppose, entered the footballing world with a nice little mix.
Well, you say you like writing. If you ever want to write an article for 1-2, feel free. Next question. So Ferguson is obviously a legend of the game. You got to know him more so than most. What was he like with the youth players, but also just as a person?
Yeah, he was kind of like, because he'd arrived at United from Aberdeen, where he'd been doing quite well. He'd managed to break the stranglehold on the Celtic Rangers dominance by taking Aberdeen to the title, and he managed to land a couple of trophies, I think like a Scottish FA Cup and things like that, which was quite remarkable. He came down to United in November '86. I think a little bit of pressure on him because United were still chasing that kind of elusive title that they'd not had for many, many years. So all the kind of pressure was on in relation to that's what they wanted delivering off him. And I think for a spell, up to 1990, he was kind of like coughing and spluttering a bit. There was an infamous banner that was sort of unfurled at Old Trafford, which said, "Ta-ra, Fergie," full of excuses, time to go or something. So it kind of like wasn't happening for him straight away. So I was kind of like in a funny time. I think our crop and our group was kind of still in the rebuild almost. I always joked with my mum and dad and said I was born a year or too early because if they'd have hung on and maybe waited till about 74 when I was born instead of 72, I might have been in that crop of that class of 92. I don't know if you've heard of it. I might have ended up in that lot. So I think I was born a couple of years too early, but that's destiny, I suppose, isn't it, and fate. So, but yeah, a complete winner. He always kind of was interested in the youth side, the youth development side, bringing players through, and just a very, very passionate man. He used to play head tennis with the assistant manager called Archie Knox, and he'd bring all the youngsters into the gym, and he wouldn't let you stop playing until they won. So it could be going like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and until they'd won, he'd say, right, that'll do you, and that could be like 7:30. I'm thinking, I've got to get home for my tea here. I'm playing, but that's kind of how he was. He hated losing at stuff, from what he went on to do was quite incredible. Like from sort of early 90s right through to sort of when he retired. I think he had about 26 years, Sir Alex, like in charge of a Premier League club. Like, I know Arsene Wenger come close to it, but I think that's quite remarkable, isn't it, for anyone to do that.
You mentioned the class of 92. That was going to be my last question, but I'll do it now anyway. It must be a bit frustrating looking back and thinking, what you just missed out and on all the success they got. I know you said in the previous interview, it's not about the money for you, but the success and, having that experience and winning all those titles that you just so closely just missed out on must be quite, frustrating to look back on.
Yeah, it's like anything else, Oliver. Things take time. I think, the French did it, I think, with that Clairefontaine, in relation to building youth players and then try to win the World Cup a few years later. It doesn't happen immediately. And I think myself and a lot of other youngsters who were with me at the time probably just felt a little bit shortchanged in that we'd done all right. We was winning all the junior leagues. We won a prestigious tournament in Italy called the Grossi Marera tournament. We'd managed to get to a quarter-final of the FA Youth Cup in my first year as an apprentice, a semi-final in the second year as an apprentice, and we played Spurs in the semi-final, and we absolutely hammered them. We lost 2-0 in the first leg, but when they come to Old Trafford for the second leg, we peppered them. Young Giggsy was in the youth team at the time, and he had a few one-on-ones and hitting the post, hitting the bar, and we ended up drawing 1-1, and we couldn't quite turn the tie around. So it makes you wonder that if that had happened that year, that we'd have won the FA Youth Cup, which United was chasing for quite a number of years. You're thinking to yourself, would it have been a little bit different? Would a lot of our crop got chances in the first team? But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it, and that was left to the glory of the class of '92, who picked the FA Youth Cup up a couple of years later, and then went on to do some unbelievable things.
You mentioned there that you played with Giggsy. So my next question is, obviously you played with and you trained with a lot of big name players. What are the biggest names that we'll be envious of that you trained with and you got to play with?
Yeah, well, United in sort of the mid-'80s, late '80s had lads like Brian Robson, Norman Whiteside, Paul McGrath. We had lads like Steve Bruce arrived, Dennis Irwin, Lee Sharp, Andre Kanchelskis, Mark Bosnich. Just a sea of class players, like great names. Gary Pallister. Some high quality players, Mark Hughes, Gordon Strachan, Brian McClare. So really, really good pros, and it was really, really interesting to play and train alongside those guys, just to see it close up how good they were. And when you used to get asked to go and step into the first team maybe for training, it was always really tricky because you had to be like very, very sharp. Players close you down a lot quicker, and your brain had to work quicker. So I think that was quite demanding sometimes, but it was good to see it close up. And we talk about levels and transitions between youths, under 18s, under 23s, and the first team. It's quite a big step, than a lot more than people think, between the under 23s and the first team environment, or the under 18s and the first team environment. It's quite wide in relation to physicality, psychology, your social, your personality. It's very, very different, because you could be Mr. Big in the academy, the main man scoring all the goals, and then you go into the first team environment and you're right at the bottom of the pole almost. You've got all these internationals around you, lads who have played 300, 400, 500 games. And it's a massive challenge to your identity. You've got to grow up quickly and you've got to step up quickly. And, that's it in football. Chances are very, very rare. And if you get a chance and you don't take them up, make the most of it, it can be difficult to get a chance again because it's so competitive.
You said there about the big leap up from each stage of football. But who, when you were there, did you think, it's going to go on to become, a really big success in the game?
Well, young Giggsy was the main person, really, and he was kind of the lad who sort of impressed the most coming through, like the sort of youth games and the sort of A team, and it was like a bit different back then, the structures. So you have like the B team was the first team that you started playing for at United. They were kind of like, it was under 18s, but more 15, 16, 17-year-olds in that side. And then the A team was the kind of the next step, which was kind of like Eric Harrison was the youth team manager, and he looked after the A team. So that was like your first kind of step into open age football, because you could be like 16, 17, 18 playing against like men. So that was a real challenge. And then from there, you had it was something called the Old Central League, where you got like lads who were not playing in the first team and step into the reserves. So you'd have like a mix of pros, young pros and first team players, which was again really competitive. So it was quite an interesting transition, going up those stages. But yeah, just going back to your question, Giggsy was like that. He stood out the most. He was like different class. First saw him around 14 in the School of Excellence, and Eric Harrison said, look at this player here. He's going to be some player. And it didn't really mean a lot to me at the time, because he's only thin, small. He didn't carry any weights, he's like tiny, and you're thinking I don't understand this lad's going to be some player, because I was only like young lad myself. But Eric's judgment wasn't wrong, was he? He was spot on that one, to go on and play like 963 games and, like Premier Leagues, FA Cups, Charity Shields, Champions Leagues. He's done it all right, hasn't he? And, what an unbelievable career. So he'd be probably the main one that kind of stood out. But alongside Ryan, we had a little fella called A.D. Doherty as well. He was like, Ollie Kayes wrote a book about him called Forever Young. He was another lad who was standing out. And you think about pathways of, these thin tight ropes, these thin paper thin lines that you're walking on. That was one. It didn't quite work out for Adrian, and a lot of the staff and supporters who followed the junior teams thought he was as good as Ryan Giggs coming through the system, and his first team opportunity was just going to sort of not be far away. And he got a bad knee injury, done his cruciate ligaments in, and it didn't work out. He drifted away from football, and unfortunately he died in his kind of like his mid-late 20s in a tragic accident. So, you talk about agony and ecstasy and ups and downs and, and if buts and maybes, there's two like classic cases really running alongside each other.
That's a great shame. But you talk about sort of, getting praise, and I read an interview in the Manchester Evening News about you, where you said that you were playing for a reserve game against Manchester City, in which you picked them to winning the Lancashire League Division 1 title by 1 point, and Alex Ferguson singled out you for praise. What was that moment like? That must have been the highlight of your career. It would be for me anyway. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a weird one, that one, Oliver, because we've been chasing City down all season, nip and tuck, and it got to the end of the season. A few games have been called off, and we had 4 in the last week. So we had to play Saturday, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday. So we won the Saturday, we won the Tuesday, won the Thursday. So it come down to a sort of winner-takes-all game at Platt Lane, which is City's old training ground. And this is like the really, really like ups and downs of football. So we managed to beat them 2-1. We won the league, fantastic. After the game, Sir Alex singled me out for praise and said, you've done fantastic, because they had a young quality winger that were playing for City that morning called Jason Beckford. He went to play in the first team for him, and I'd done okay. I'd done well. He'd not had really a kick, and I'd had a good game, so that was fantastic praise. Anyway, in the sort of Tuesday or the Wednesday of that week afterwards, Sir Alex had called me up into the his office at the Cliff and said to me, we're not going to renew your contract. We're going to have to move you on. So, from going from that and getting the praise on a Saturday to going from your world falling to bits on the Wednesday was a bit surreal and a bit difficult to comprehend. So, but, it's life. It happens. You take the rough with the smooth, the ups and the downs, because that's what football is. It's just peppered with them. And that was it. It was time to kind of, the United journey had come to a shuddering halt, and I was only 19 at the time, unfortunately, so still a relatively young lad.
Now, that is going to be my next question. So I'll just make you touch on that a bit. Were you told why you were released? Because obviously, like you said, a couple of days prior, you were being, ranted and raved about by Sir Alex himself. So there must have been a reason. Was it something to do with the club, or was it just, what was it?
He just said the reason was, it's different now because, like, with performance analysis in the modern day, you can probably get a lot more breakdown of your performances, which, a lot of the performances back then were just by observation, like coaches' opinions of what they were seeing. There was recordings of games, but they were on the old VHS tapes, and there was no analysis or looking. Let's have a look at the game again, and you had 70% possession, your passing was 20 out of 22, all that sort of stuff that we see in the modern day. So from an informed perspective, it just goes on opinion, and he just said that he said we just feel as though you lack a yard of pace to sort of get into first team contention and stay in first team contention. But the bizarre thing is like when I went to Exeter and started like my career moving again, like Paula said, you're pretty sharp, aren't you? And then I don't know, like a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, I had a little podcast with Ryan Giggs, and one of the like the listeners' questions was like, what was Alan Tonge like as a player? And Ryan, like, he had a bit of a think, and he said he was decent. He said you wasn't rapid, but you could certainly handle yourself pace-wise. So you're getting like a view from Ryan saying like you were okay in that, but then Sir Alex saying like you lacked a yard. So it's all opinions, isn't it? This is it with young people and young players, and if you do get a knockback or you get a deselection, just take it as if okay, and just keep doing what you're doing because ultimately it's just one person's view of you, and that's the way it goes in sport. It's full of opinions, especially with social media. I'm sure you guys are jumping on social media quite regularly, and you see it on a regular basis. It's just opinion city, isn't it? All the time, everyone's views on what managers should be doing, what teams they should be playing, what formations they should be playing. And it gets crackers, doesn't it? The world and his wife has an opinion these days, but yeah, it hurt. It was tough. That was a difficult thing to take because I've been at the club since I was 14, 15. I'd got there for to 19, 4 or 5 seasons. So yeah, that was a real difficult time to sort of try and get over.
That's not a bad opinion to have had by Ryan. It seems like quite a nice one to have. I'd be delighted with that opinion from Ryan Giggs. You just touched on it again, so this should ease us into the next set of questions with the ex-City sort of career. But what was it like for you? Obviously, you said you were 19. What was it like for you and your family when you were released? Obviously, you were on such a high. You were in Man United's academy, and then all of a sudden your world came tumbling down sort of out of nowhere in a way.
Yeah, it was very tough. Like Sir Alex had said, there'd been a couple of clubs interested. He said Notts Forest were having a look, Leicester City. So I was playing like quite a few reserve games at the end of the season. But unfortunately, how it used to work back then was you finished the season about end of May, early June, and you went on a break for about 6 weeks. So it's out like all the football world back then, just everybody goes away on holiday, and you go into sort of like what's known as the pre-season. So the phone just didn't ring at all, and it stopped ringing, and then all of a sudden you fell into this void of what am I going to do next? Like, I've not got a club at the moment, and obviously in back in when I played, there was no agents that could do ringing up for you. So it ended up me having to do a bit of spade work and contact a few clubs and a few managers to see if they'd have a look at me. So it just felt as though you'd just been sort of like left, it's like it felt as though like an empty crisp packet, I call it. That's my metaphorical explanation where, once you're done, and you walk out of those training ground gates for the last time, and it's like nobody contacts you anymore. It's like you go from hero to zero with a click of the fingers, and so it was a real tough challenge to sort of get my career moving and to try and stay fit as well, because you're not in full-time training. You kind of like, you need to keep your fitness up, because if you did get someone who was interested, you need to hit the ground running. So it was a really strange time, and even to this day, I'm still interested and intrigued with transitions, with players at all levels coming away from the sport, and just sort of, just keeping an eye on that step in relation to, mental health and depression, because potentially it's a really difficult and challenging moment that for an athlete and a sportsman person, it's a tough time to deal with.
I'll ask one more question. I know that was one more question, but I'm going to ask one more, and then Nathan can take over it with his questions. Did it cross your mind to give up playing football after you were released?
To be honest with you, Oliver, I don't think it did, because you had the options like, do you want to go back into education? Looking at like a lot of players do. If you think about again modern football, if you get released at sort of 17, 18 from your apprenticeship, a lot go on to like maybe head to America or jump onto a degree program where the football is a key component of that. But I still feel as though I had like something to offer, because I just felt as though the journey had not been finished, it had not been completed. I still had like, opportunities where I felt I was good enough, and and it's like it's really strange, because you think I was playing in the reserves at 15, I was playing in the under 18s at 15, I was playing I played in the first team friendly at 17 for United. Made my debut for Exeter at 19. So I was like, I still had like quite a lot to give. So I think coming through that, I didn't consider giving up, but it was hard. It was hard to get back in, if that makes sense, because in football you're very, very quickly forgotten. If you look at these, they're called release and retain lists, and they're issued every summer. There's about 700, 800 names on there. And 700, 800 names are not going to get a club, I'm afraid. So it's a real challenge. So like I say, to this day, I'm still interested in, looking after or thinking about experiences of players and considering that they should be looked after more in that window where you go from the end of a contract, like into another opportunity.
So originally it wasn't straight to Exeter. I believe you spent a bit of time at Horwich RMI. How did that come about? Was that sort of specifically just to get some minutes in? Absolutely, Nathan. I was kind of just trying to keep fit, really. Trying to keep involved and keep playing. And just sort of keep ticking over, really. So that was kind of like used as a sort of a platform, really. That while I was still sort of pursuing and trying to contact clubs and get sort of an opportunity somewhere, it was just a way of ticking over, really. So that was like just filling in the void and filling in the bridge from coming away from United, and then maybe trying to get back in somewhere as a pro. Did you always kind of believe, not that you was too good for the standard, but you always felt like this is not where I'm going to end up when you was playing? Yeah, I think you do. I think once you've played with like a sort of an elite level side for 3, 4, 5 seasons, and you sort of come down, it's definitely noticeable in the levels, because like sometimes you get the ball, like I sort of predominantly played at fullback for United. You get like lads, and we work on patterns of play in training where you kind of know what the midfielders are going to do, and the forwards are kind of, if they come towards the ball, they're going to spin into the channel, so you could try and clip the ball in there, and you come down a level or two, and they're kind of like, you get the ball and it's not moving, so it's like, like it doesn't seem to be as fluid. So that was kind of a sort of a bit of an adjustment, but at the end of the day, it's like, there were some really good players when I sort of arrived at Exeter, like ex-England internationals were in the playing squad. We had like Stevie Williams, who was a great footballer, Steve Moran. They'd all played at a good level. So the adjustment and coming down was helped by the standards of those types of players. So yeah, it was a quick turnaround to go to Exeter. I don't believe you was at Horwich all that long. How did that come about? Because obviously that's pretty far away from Manchester in that area. Yeah. So what had happened was, I think it was Bawley had found out that I'd been released by United. Now, going back in my journey to when I was 17, I got picked to go and play in like a sort of England representative side in Russia. It was like the centenary of the Football League. I think it was 100 years of the English Football League and 100 years of Russia or something. So they'd arranged this game in Moscow. And Alan Ball and a lad called Laurie McMenemy, like old managers, they were like in charge of the party. So I went away in that, and I was like the youngest player in that squad, and I was captain, and we won 2-1. So like it was like an amazing experience. And then I think he'd watched the reserves a few times as well over the time that I'd been at United. So he kind of remembered me for that. So he invited me down there to sort of like just initially on a short term, sort of like, let's have a look at you. So I went down.
I always like to say this on podcasts. I never knew where Exeter was. I've never heard of it before, because and that's no slight on Exeter or anything. I just wasn't sure where I was going. So I remember my dad put me a map together, because there was no sat navs back then in those days. It was all looking at in an A to Z, a map situation, and try to plot your route down the motorway. Right. See, luckily Exeter's kind of motorway from where I live. You go down the M6 for a long time, then you jump on the M5, and it takes you all the way down. So luckily there's no A roads and B roads to jump on. So I arrived down in Exeter. Remember coming in, calling into the where the old club shop used to be, and asking for the contact to show me to some digs. And it was really interesting. There was about 5, 6, 7 players in the digs at the time, and that was it. I was off, ready to try and fight for my life and try and prove something to somebody. It was an interesting time.
I mean, what was that like? Very young, moving to somewhere that, you didn't know where it was beforehand. So, how was that?
Tough. It's like sort of moving, quite a way away from home. But it's you think about university students. They travel all over. We get people coming up from London to come and study in Manchester. We get people over from Ireland to study in Manchester. So I kind of say probably a similar transition and experience to sort of those types of people. But it was a long way. And I remember we've got quite a close family, and it's almost like you're having to move away from parents for this kind of the first time. And my late nana was a little bit upset, because you're always going on this trip and this journey that nobody knows when they're going to see you again, really. You pack all your gear up and your boots and all your stuff in a big bag, and away you go. I had a little Fiesta at the time, and it's really intriguing what sticks with you. I remember you guys are very young, but on the sort of the one of the first tracks that was playing was called a track called Wind of Change by the Scorpions, and I thought that was quite. You talk about destinies and stuff like that. Listen to the Wind of Change, because I was having a wind of change, and sometimes you get little bits and snippets of meaning through music, and to this day, 30 years ago, something like that, I can still remember music playing going down the M6, M5, to try and sort of get your career moving again, and try and prove yourself, and prove yourself to yourself more than anything, and thinking, well, I am good enough. It's just one person's opinion of you. I am a decent footballer. Let's see if somebody else can go and recognise that.
So you made your debut against Wigan, I believe. And how did you feel that day when you were told, right, this is your first game? Brilliant.
Like a lot of other things in life, I think sometimes you need a little bit of luck, and my luck came with a few injuries into the playing squad that week. We had a fullback there back then called Scott Iley, very, very good player, Scott. He'd picked up a knock. I think we had about 3 or 4 lads who were out, and Alan Ball pulled us on the Thursday and said, you're going to be making your debut Saturday. And, it's just very exciting, incredible. I remember the morning, turning up, your suit on, and it's like, you sort of your identity, it's like it goes to another level, because you're going to be involved in the first team and playing in the first team in a league game, So again, you talk about these experiences of under 18s and reserves. This is a proper league match that you're playing in now. So from a pride and an excitement and a sort of so pleased with myself that I've managed to get that opportunity. It was one of the great days. But not the result. The result didn't go as well as planned, unfortunately.
But so you mentioned working under Alan Ball. He's a World Cup winner, had such a kind of very highly esteemed career. How was that? Because obviously sometimes when top players struggle to transition into managers, what was he like?
Yeah, fantastic Ball. Very, I've got a lot of time for Alan Ball, and very, very similar to Sir Alex in a way, just mad passionate on winning. good football philosophy. You drop down the league sometimes, Nathan. You get a lot of these managers who just want to play it forwards all the time, and as soon as you get it on at full back, get it into the forwards, and like the ball's bouncing off the clouds to get into the area and stuff like that. But the good thing with Borley is he always tried to, like, in his sessions and his drills that he did, he was always it was always based on passing and possession and retention and playing in little triangles, and so his football philosophy was good. But on occasion he would lose his temper because you've got a World Cup winner here, an elite level player right at the top of his trade. Arsenal, Everton, Southampton, real quality, played for England loads of times, and then you're working with league sort of, I think it was like the League One equivalent at the time, and the players are not what he used to be, if that makes sense. So he would be prone to losing his rag quite a lot. But you think of Borley, wow, what an unbelievable player. And we used to have five-a-sides on a Friday morning back then, as a lot of the culture did. Friday morning used to call it like a little razz. Used to have, like, England would play the rest of the world in a five-a-side competition, or you get young uns v old uns, and Borley used to join in, and he was must have been about late 40s, 47, 48, 2 or 3 stone overweight. Probably not played for many years, and he used to run the show. And you used to look at him and you think, my word, if you're doing this here, like his little one touches and his little, his brain's ticking so quick. And you think to yourself, if you can do that now here, what you like when you was properly fit, and it's like, you look at someone like that and you think, wow. But he gave me my league debut, Borley, and I had a lot of time for him, and I love playing. It's something I'm very proud of, about one, representing Exeter in the Football League, and 2, like, having it under Alan Ball, a World Cup winner who gives you your debut. Like, great memories.
So when you look back at your whole time at Exeter, what was kind of your best memory playing for the club?
Yeah, there's about 2 or 3 that stand out. I think the one that probably the main one is, like I spoke before about this, is like we played Plymouth Argyle, like the local derby, and Borley had all the players wound up all week, and he was just highlighting the importance to the fans. He was saying, like, I've played in Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, Spurs, Southampton, Portsmouth, and he said, I know how much this means to the group of people who come following you week in, week out. And he said, woe betide if anybody lets me down. You'll have me to answer for. And all week, what he'd been doing, he'd identified that Plymouth had, like, a danger man called Warren Joyce. Warren's at Salford City at the moment. It's like the assistant manager, or like the youth development manager. And Borley had tried to sign Warren from Stoke City, I think, or for Stoke City when Borley were there. So he knew he was a good player. And he said, like, your job is just to follow Warren Joyce everywhere. He doesn't get a kick. That's your role, man marking job. So from the first minute, I was just ratting at him. His ankles were getting smashed, and every time the ball came in, I was trying to sort him out. But the great thing with Borley is, he said, like, as soon as you get a chance, go and play as well. Don't just be following him everywhere. If we break or we have a chance around the edge of the area, go and play. So on the first goal that we scored, I'd managed to sort of find a bit of space on the left-hand side. I think it was Scott Daniels who played the ball back to me. I managed to find a decent cross in, and Pete Wisson headed the first goal, and so it's a really nice assist. And I just wrote an article for the Senior Reds supporters group from Exeter, and I sort of just spoke about that game and how it panned out. And out of nowhere, out a bolt from the blue, one of the fans said, "I've got that on tape in the attic. I'll put it on a DVD for you and send over." So hopefully, any moment now, dropping through the post should be a recording of that game that I played in. So that'll be really exciting. I'll try and cut some stuff out of that.
Good.
The second game that I was involved with was really exciting. It was when Scott Tyler scored his hat-trick at Reading away. That was a fantastic occasion. We had loads of Grecians behind the goal on that occasion, and just, to see that Scott nod his hat-trick in, and all the crowd, I think all the crowd jumped on the fence, and like the police getting involved and stuff like that. It's like a real buzz. It's amazing. And you talk about the passions of football and the supporters and the players, like all as one. That was like really special as well. And the final one is like my first league goal against Stockport County. That was amazing as well. And it's like, when you score and you sort of wheel away and you sort of jump up and give it that, and all players are on you, and that's a massive thrill as well. And that's it with football. They give you these experiences that are very unique. And what it is, it's like a drug. You want that all the time. You want to be scoring goals every week. You want to be playing well every week. You want to be celebrating with the fans every week. But unfortunately, there's like a lot more a lot more downs in football than there are ups. So I suppose one of the things that I regret the most is maybe really enjoying and making the most of these times, because that's it in football. It's over so quick. You click your fingers. If you're lucky, you get to 35, 36, and you play 500, 600, 700 games. But unfortunately, there's not a lot. There's only a handful of people who manage to do that. You're more likely to be moved on, deselected, injuries, poor dressing room relationships. You don't get on with everybody, so you're not happy. Poor coaching and manager relationships, so you don't get on with those, and they're leaving you out and not talking to you. And there's a lot more downs in football than there are ups. And I think those downs really, really test your resilience. But when the ups come, there's nothing better. I mean, you guys as well, as if you play the game yourself and supporters, there's nothing better, is there, than your team getting a last-minute winner somewhere, and it's like, it's just like exhilarating, isn't it? It's like a real high, and that's why loads and loads of people are so interested in football, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from experience being an Exeter fan. Some of the nights on the Big Bank, especially the Carlisle one, will come to mind. That was just unreal. Yeah, but obviously, Exeter's in quite a good state now in terms of facilities and the finances of the club, as compared to even 10 years ago, 15 years ago when you was there. What was it like with like St James's Park and the training ground?
Yeah, we were still at the is it still called the Cliff Hill training ground now? So we used to call it the Cat and Fiddle back then. We trained at the Cat and Fiddle, Exeter. I think there was a pub down the road. I don't know if it's still there.
Yeah, the Cat and Fiddle.
Yeah. Honestly, I keep saying to like some of the lads and the guys who do the social media stuff at Exeter, I will come back one day. When I left Exeter, I think it was about 97, 98, I fully moved on and come back to the north. I've never been back since. So I think I'm more than due to go and have a look. And when I see the ground, I probably won't be able to recognise it, because of all the stands on there and stuff like that. But yeah, the Cat and Fiddle was like a nice training facility. It was only basic. It was like, I tend to remember, it used to have like a bit of waterloggy problems in certain areas of it. So if we had like really, really bad downpours and a real lot of rain, it had all that massive puddles. Because I remember if there was a forfeit or you'd lost your five-a-side, you had to dive into the puddles head first. So, but now I think they've put like a nice AstroTurf on there now, haven't they? And some of the pitches are still in the sort of similar area from what I've seen on like some of the footage from games that have been played on there. And St James's as well, used to have like the big bank, as you said. At the top of the big bank, I can't remember, there used to be like, I'm not too sure if it was like a little police room or a media room or something like that. That was kind of right on the top of it. And then on the sort of like, you come out the tunnel and you look straight in front of you, like you had like something called the cow shed. So that was all like sort of the affectionate name under there. And then I think that the away end was uncovered, wasn't it? There was no covering on that. And then just the stand, which I think has been developed, hasn't it, like a brand new main stand now. So yeah, so great memories from there and great times. And I went to Exeter 91, and I think I come back up north about 97. So I had 5, 6, 7 years at Exeter. And I absolutely, really, really enjoyed my time down there. A fantastic city. And so it sounds bizarre, it's because I've never been back, but I'm really looking forward to travelling back down there.
And last one from me, obviously we'll touch on what you've done after your career and how your career came to an end. But you're still involved with Exeter, so partly when you do the BBC Radio Devon, things like that. I mean, what's that like? Just being able to go to games and watch Exeter and seeing the progress.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, like anything else in life, things just come out of nowhere. When I was back up in the northwest, I've been doing something on Radio Manchester called Red Wednesday, and they get like an old United player on, like an ex-player, and it's just basically an hour with a couple of fans just to discuss what the weekend's games are like, who's in form at the moment, any transfer rumours, what's happening in the club, etc., etc. So that was really good. I really used to enjoy that. So anyway, just out of the blue, the lad who was at Radio Manchester, who's kind of like, well up there, like head of sport, Bill Rice, he phoned me on I think I was just heading home from work, and he said Radio Devon have been on the phone. Exeter are playing Macclesfield Town. Do you know anybody in the area who could maybe do some summary work or do, a little bit of co-coms or whatever it is? So Bill said, I've put your name forward to Alan Richardson, and I said, oh, brilliant, cheers. Well, so Alan phoned us and said, will you go to Macclesfield and just watch the game? So like anything else, Nathan, I don't know what's coming. I've never really done any radio work before, and and you're just getting to grips with some of the players and the skills and the qualities and what they're good at, and you're getting better at that. And so from the Macclesfield game, most times Exeter now are in the north, or they come up to play in a region, so about an hour and a half to 2 hours. He'll drop me a mail and says, will you jump on and do the summary for us? So I've done Scunthorpe, Grimsby, I've got Port Vale coming up, I've got hopefully I'll be doing Bolton at the end of the season. So it's a real shame, because for the last few months since we've been in lockdown, the BBC have been really funny and said that, importantly, you're not allowed to go out your area. They've been kind of not funny, that's the wrong word, more protective, to say that you can't travel. So I've missed out quite a few games, in relation to when they've been up north. Like, I would have done Scunthorpe last week. I think they've got Oldham coming up next week, so it's a shame, but yeah, it's something that I've really enjoyed and something that I really enjoy doing. And from that, I've done. I managed to do the Man United Watford FA Cup game for Radio Manchester in January. So it's something that I'm keen to maybe do a little bit more of. Like time forgiving. Like to sort of pick that up somewhere. And the good thing with League Two at the moment is there's quite a lot of northern teams in it, but we'd like Exeter to go into League One. So you can't have it both ways, but. So already I've been having a look in League One to see what the northern teams up, and I've been trying to work it all out. And I've been going, well, if Exeter do miss out, I hope they don't. But if they did, maybe Wigan and Rochdale might get relegated from League One and come into League Two. So it gives you more opportunity to get involved with that. But I've really enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure. A lot of the games that I've seen, Exeter have done brilliantly well. They've picked up draws, they've picked up wins, and they've done some great performance. I think they smashed Grimsby to bits. I think it was either 4-0 or 5-0, could have been 10. Come up to Crewe Alexander, who were top of the league at the time, get a point, but Exeter play them off the park. Macclesfield, late winner, 3-2, Ryan Bowman. That was a thrill and really exciting. So I think he's got some good stuff going, man. And I think if he can just get, he's so deserving, this kind of squad of getting it over the line. They keep getting to the playoffs and not quite doing it. They've had like playoffs about 2 or 3 years on the bounce, haven't they? Not quite got over the line, and it's so close, but it's getting competitive at the top of the league, at that League Two. So it's going to have to take something special to keep that run going and maybe have a chance of doing it.
Yeah, I think that obviously we all hope X get up, please. we will one day.
Overdue.
Yeah, and then I think that's also the perfect transition into Kieran's section with the talking about your injuries and career. So.
Thank you, Nathan. I think it's fair to say that League Two, at the best of times, especially this season with no fans, is very unpredictable, to say the least. Just going back to your time with Exeter, which was kind of abruptly cut short at one moment where you suffered an unfortunate injury. Would you be able to just kind of talk us through that moment or the lead up to that moment, if anything happened that you noticed prior to the moment where you realised that it was quite serious?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, Kieran, really. I'd kind of been playing with something that I knew wasn't right, but because my contract was running out, and because I thought that, I needed to try and get another contract because, I want to stay in football, I don't want to be moving on again, you kind of like ignoring it and just sort of like, trying to get by, but it was steadily getting worse and worse. And I remember, I think it was Swansea City away. It was really sore, and I've been selected to play on that night. And I said to my mate, like Dave Cooper, who was at the time, like, do you think, you know, I'm struggling, Coops, I can hardly move here. So he said, you can't really tell Bally now because like we're here at the ground, all the kits are laid out and all that. He said it'll like wreck his plans because he's set his team up, and if you go to him like 45 minutes before kickoff and saying your back's hurting, you know, it's going to like sort of like mess everything up. So I thought, oh my God. So I got a load of DP on my hands and rubbed it all over my back and just thought, I'm just going to have to try and get on with it. Anyway, I played that game, and it wasn't long after where I had to go and see the physio at the time, Mick Chapman, and I said to Mick, I'm struggling, Mick, I need someone to have a look at this for us. So he sent me to Frenchay Hospital in Bristol to have an MRI scan, and it was a surgeon called Mr. Stephen Gill at the time. He said, like, your back's in a right mess. He says you've got a piece of bone missing that's worn away. He said all the bottom of your spine's like collapsed a little bit, so all the pins and needles that you're getting is when like you're moving and like it's your kind of your spinal touching against your nerves and things like that. So I'm thinking, oh my God. And he said one bad tackle on that in any of the game, he said that could have severed your spinal cord, and he said you would have been in a mess then. You know, it's like a wheelchair job you're talking about. So it kind of hits home, like you trying to be brave and things like that, when really that was just silly and stupid. So anyway, I went into hospital. I had some metal work put in. I had to have screws and plates inserted into the bottom of my back because I was only 22 at the time. And I come back to Exeter, started my rehab 3 or 4 months down the line. I was still getting pins and needles, so I had to go back in again, have more surgery. And it got to the end of that, and I thought, this is going to be tough to come back of, not from a physical perspective. Well, that's one part of it, but from a mental perspective as well, because I thought if I go up for a cross or like someone knees me in the back, or you're going for a tackle where someone boots like gets right in the bottom of your back or something, I don't fancy that. So it was kind of like, I'm going to have to seriously think about, you know, training all the time, full time, and playing full time. I don't know if I'm going to be up for it. So that was the situation, and I managed to, you know, I had to transition out of football. Unfortunately, that was my career finished. I think I was only about 23 and a half at the time, done, all over.
And you mentioned there about it kind of being mentally difficult for an in-game situation where you're kind of worried about your back. Obviously, spending so much time on the sidelines watching on, how did you kind of cope with that during your recovery, which was quite extensive?
Yeah, very, very, very tough, Kieran, because you're isolated from what's going on. You're not part of it. You're basically working with the physio every day and doing strength work and weights, and then, you know, you might send you off for some swimming and then come back, and then all the lads are going out training, and you're not part of match days. And what it was like back then is, like a lot of managers, they didn't really want injured players around the dressing room and around the team because, you know, they've got other things to concentrate on. They've got to concentrate on winning games and getting points on the board. And the last thing you want is someone with the sort of face on and, you know, almost like the down-turned lips in the dressing room because they're not playing, like on crutches, or they don't want that. So it was really tough. And I think it's the sort of the isolation really that really you struggle with in relation to your mental health, because you've had all this excitement and all this kind of opportunity to be involved and play in the first team. It's not there anymore. So there's almost like a void, and it's like things start rushing in to fill that void, if that makes sense. So you're spending a little bit more time in the pub than you should be. Your diet's kind of gone a little bit AWOL. You might be betting and gambling a little bit more than you should be. It's just to try and keep your spirits upbeat. But that's totally the wrong thing to do, because you're not growing or developing in any way. You're just wasting your time. So that was kind of like what I fell into for a year or two, and you end up putting a lot of weight on, and it's harder then to come back, and you know, it just takes on a down dip. And I think all I can relate it to is just because it's almost like an involuntary transition. I didn't decide to transition out of football. It wasn't my choice. And it was kind of like it's been put on you. And it's like you come out of football and you're like lost, and you're thinking like, what do I do next? I'm not qualified in anything else. So that was like a really tough time for about 3 or 4 years after that. to try and get myself back on track again. So yeah, that was like difficult moments, that.
And then just sort of moving forward a little bit to where you are now, where you have been for several years now, in terms of teaching, finding a way to remain in sport. Kind of how did that come about for you? I remember you mentioned that you were someone who quite enjoyed school. So was that an element of that you wanted to go back into education and then kind of advance in that area going forward?
Yeah. Because when I come out of football, I was like a funny age. I was like 24. Football all I'd known. When I was at United Apprentice, I'd done a BTEC National in sport. So you got to 18, but then you kind of like your qualifications stopped. So then because you've gone into your football career. So I got to 24, and then I needed sort of something to do. I needed to bring like some wages in. So it's just kind of like trying to find work, like van driving, things that you kind of like, stereotypically can earn a few wages in, warehouse work, packing stuff, like loading lorries, that sort of stuff. And it, up until sort of the 28, I kind of like thought it's something that I've never really considered, like going back to university to sort of do a degree. So I don't know where it come from. It might have even been a family member. It might have even been like one of my parents that said, like, have you not fancied like, building on your education again and doing sort of something that, part-time or studying. So I thought, well, it sounds a good idea. So I went into University of Bolton. It was called Bolton Institute back then. I spoke to somebody about courses, and they said, well, obviously you've got quite a strong background and affinity with sport. Do you not fancy doing a degree in sports science? So I said, well, I'll give it a go. So I went to university, and I think the first couple of weeks it was really tough. Like a lot of students, I wasn't sure whether it was the right choice because, university is quite challenging. There's lots of things to read, and there's lots of terminology, and there's lots of difficult ways of doing things. Obviously you're expected to write work in a certain way. And I think the first week or two, I come back, and I can't remember. I think I remember saying, it might have been to one of my parents, like, I don't know if this is for me, this, like staying on it. And I was close to sort of thinking of maybe looking for something else. But, sometimes it's hard to explain. That little voice inside you says, go and give it another week. And I remember going back and doing a lecture again. I think it was on something called somatotypes, body composition. Mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorphs, and I kind of got that. I understood all that. And if that lesson had been particularly difficult that morning, if it had been very scientific, or we'd looked at something like, the way the heart and lung operates, or we might have looked at metabolic rate or something like that, I might have thrown the cards in and said, I can't continue with this. It's confusing me, it's baffling me, and I don't understand it, etc., etc. So yeah, stuck at it. I got a 2-1. I'm proud of myself for that. So I got a degree in that. And then again, just coming to the end of that kind of experience is like a lot of young students. What do I do now? What are you looking to do? But so what I saw is I enjoyed like the lectures. I like listening to lectures. I thought they were very professional, the way they did things. And suddenly, like, you start sort of seeing yourself maybe a little bit. That your future maybe becomes a little bit clearer. You can start seeing something that maybe you could do. So I jumped onto a PGCE, so I did a year of teacher training, and got through that, got into placements, delivering sports courses and coaching stuff and sports science, and I really enjoyed that, working with young people. And then from that, it kind of sort of transitioned. I got a job at a college. I was there for 11 years, delivering A-levels, BTEC, sports stuff, brilliant, really, really good. And then within the college, they had like foundation degrees as well. So they were higher education qualifications. So I got involved with that. And then from then, I kind of transitioned and went to UCFB. I've been working there for the last 5 years. So it's coming into that 17 years of teaching now. And that's gone in an instant as well. You click your fingers and that's moved forwards. And it's something I really enjoy, I'm getting older and dafter and cranky, and I'm nearly 50 now. I'm 50 at my next birthday, so with my teaching and with my little bits of radio work, and I'm trying to do a little bit of writing at the moment and put a little book together called From Red to Red. So from Red United to Red getting a degree, and sort of trying to bring in a few stories that maybe people have not heard from the Fergie days and the Alan Ball days, and the mental health stuff and transitioning out of football. So I'm just trying to pen that together at the moment. and just trying to keep my hands in different things. I think one thing that I've learned from my football days, and that is just try and keep your identity as broad as you can. You know, try different things out and do different things, and you know, and try and enrich yourself in different ways.
Yeah, I think that would be a brilliant insight, brilliant read. Just lastly, Ali, I'm just slightly wary of the time and stuff. I just, from your perspective as well, I think this is quite a good embodiment of how important it is to have a backup plan. If you're a footballer, what kind of would you say to those people who are playing, but then on the side maybe going for a degree as well? How helpful would you say that is to have that plan if things do go slightly south?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, Kieran, I think my views had changed on that quite a bit, because when I was a young player, I probably wouldn't you would have got different advice off me, but because of my experiences, you know, the number one from a lot of young people, a lot of young players, football players, is to get a full and enriched career. Absolutely. And if you do that, you know, it's fantastic. And, you know, you get great plaudits off me, because I know that the game's not easy. There's a lot of challenge in there. There's a lot of difficult moments, a lot of difficult times. But I think the more older I've got and the more I've reflected and thought about it, I don't see there's any reason why you can't enrich yourself in other ways too. If you're lucky enough to be a Premier League footballer, you're probably enriching yourself in different ways, such as maybe running a business on the side. You know, not fully running the business, but having people run it for you. You know, a lot of elite level footballers have got restaurants, they've got cafes, they've got different business interests, which is brilliant. So that sort of top end stuff. But I think as you drop down the leagues in the football pyramid, as you come down into League One, League Two, then, you know, the non-leagues, National League North, etc. There's no reason why you can't do something else alongside. You know, whether that's an academic route, you know, maybe studying for a degree in something that interests you. Maybe that, you know, picking up your coaching awards and maybe doing some coaching in the community when you've got a bit of free time in an afternoon. You know, maybe go and work with different groups and different age groups in there. You know, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. Because I know football's your profession, of course it is, and, you know, the gaffer will probably saying, Alan, don't say that, we need to rest in the afternoon. But to me, like footballers, if it's like it was when I played, you've got a lot of free time, and, you know, there's only so much stuff you can do with that free time. You know, back in my day, your free time was probably a danger time, because you started going to pubs and bookies, and, you know, it wasn't constructive. But I think free time now in the modern way, in the modern game, should be really spent developing yourself. You know, some players might say, you know, they might say, well, in the afternoons, you might get an opportunity to review some of your performances. Like the analysts might have sent you some clips of your last game through an email or something, or via social media, that you can go and have a look through and a play through, and, you know, do some learning in that way. So I think my advice would be, Kieran, just to enrich yourself as much as you can. You know, football, it's broken into person and player, really. You know, the player side's obviously really important, but you've got like another identity, if that makes other identities around that. And I think one of the major problems in sport, elite level sport, you know, certainly in professional football, is a lot of players, which you need. You've got a very, very strong football identity. But the problem with that is you kind of give up other things that really you should be doing. Now, that's great. Football identities are needed because you need to have dedication. You need to give it your all. You need to enjoy what you're doing, and you need to put the work in. I get all that. But the worry is if your athletic identity lets you down, which it does a lot of the time because of deselection and injury and, you know, things that sometimes are out of your control, it's worrying then what happens in relation to the other side. You need like something else to do. So I would always say develop the player, of course, but you need to sort of think about the person behind the player as well, and developing those sort of skills. So when you do have to come out the game, because we all have to do it at one stage, hopefully the transition won't be as difficult as what I had, and you can not smoothly go over because you're giving up a playing career, but it'll be a lot more easier than 4 or 5 years before you move on to something else.
And I just wanted to touch as well on, I saw somewhere your work as a mental health ambassador. I think now more in the 21st century, it's becoming a lot more prevalent. A lot more people are speaking openly about it, which of course is amazing to see. How did that sort of come about for you, and kind of what does it involve?
Yeah, it's always something I've been interested in, really. It's just a lad contacted me from, I think it was on social media actually, like, would I be an ambassador for this mental health FA? So, you know, I did that, and, you know, anything that I can use or speak out about in relation to experiences and coming out of the game. And, you know, since I've been doing my educational journey, I've also picked up different qualifications. I've done one in psychotherapy, I've done a qualification in counselling, and I've kind of like sort of invested a lot of time writing a PhD as well in relation to player support in mental health and well-being, and thinking about, you know, what is it that players need in that environment to flourish and to make sure that we can try and, you know, help with the mental health difficulties that a lot of people, not just footballers, but right across society, that are suffering with it in this modern world that we live in. You know, so in relation to that, it's always something that I've had like a sort of an interest in.
And just one final one from me on that. In terms of teaching and lecturing and things like that, is it fair to say that your own experiences that you've had in the game have massively helped you when it comes to kind of relaying that information to others and teaching?
I think it helps from the applied side, so you can draw off previous experiences and you can bring things to life sometimes. I think that helps, but like anything else, Kieran, you know, it's about, I was probably terrified when I first went into a classroom, you know, to deliver a BTEC session. You know, I remember, you know, because we're all learning. I was learning at the time, and you go in and you've got your lesson plan and you've got all your material, but because you're quite anxious and nervous, you tend to rush through things quite a bit, and you think, I've got the slots 9 till 10:30 in this, and you get to 10 to 10 and you're thinking, and your self-talk's going on in your mind, and you're thinking, oh my God, I've run out of all the activities and the materials we've done. What am I going to do for 40 minutes? So like anything else, I think you get better at stuff and you can time things, and I think that confidence comes in relation to working with people and allowing them a little bit of time to think and do some pair work and some group work and feeding back. And I think you can manage your time a little bit better. And, you know, that's kind of one thing that I kind of learned from lecturing and teaching. And like anything else, you know, we're all on learner journeys. We're all ongoing, even though you're qualified in something. There's like new technology coming in, new IT, new ways of doing things. Social media's booming. So I think it's trying to tap into and keep abreast of, you know, what some of the younger learners out there, what they expect when they come into HE, and what they want off a degree course in relation to the content and the delivery and the way that things are done. You know, it's a lot different to when I was a young lad. When I was a lad, it sounds a bit crazy, that, doesn't it? But it was all blackboard and chalk. You know, the teachers would write stuff on the blackboard, and you'd open a book and it's a reader passes, and you've got to answer the 10 questions at the end of it. So like learning's evolved and all changed now, and so you know, it's just keeping abreast and keeping on top of that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the insight into those answers. I know Ollie has a few kind of off-topic questions I imagine that he'd like to ask, so I'll hand it back over to him.
So yeah, just a couple more questions. I won't keep you for too much longer. I know we've been here for a while already, but first of all, where do you think your career would have gone if you didn't actually get an injury? I know that's a big statement to sort of say, like, and stuff like that, but where do you think you actually would have ended up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the dreams, for a lot of players who've kind of started off high, gone low, is to come back high again, isn't it? A couple of examples: Robbie Savage, United, played in the class of 92, got released, went to Crewe, and then ended up back in the Premier League. So there's like a sort of a journey. I think there was an old player, I don't know if you guys will remember him, but he's an England international called David Platt. Played in sort of some of the World Cups in the early years, but I think David Platt got released from United as a kid, 18, went to Crewe, similar to Robbie Savage, ended up captaining England. Or Jamie Vardy, we mentioned earlier on in the podcast. Ian Wright, we mentioned earlier on in the podcast. So there is examples of kind of high to low to high, but, you know, maybe just to sort of like stay in. You know, Exeter, I enjoyed it there, you know, maybe to get, you know, more appearances, more goals, you know, stayed in that club for a long time, you know, especially if you feel as though you're wanted there or you're rated, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's whether you have an affinity for the club and whether the manager wants you there. And it's nice to be wanted, isn't it? That's what a lot of players want. So maybe if it had worked out, but it wasn't my destiny, Oliver. That's it. It wasn't meant to be. So we're here talking about a slightly different route and a slightly different story.
Obviously, you did get injured, and this could be a bit far-fetched with me saying this, so it's just a odd question. You say you haven't returned to Exeter since you obviously left and your injury. Do you think that might be because of maybe the connotations that you left with getting injured, or is it just something that just hasn't happened?
Yeah, could be. I've never really thought about that for some angle. There might be some, almost like what do they call it? There's like a sort of a story that's not been finished yet, and you don't want to. Maybe there's a bit of anxiety or fear going back into an environment that sort of like that was such a disappointing one to finish on. Maybe you've resisted and thought, well, I'm okay doing what I'm doing at the moment. I don't want to evoke any emotions that are kind of still dormant or that are in you, that are still alive if they kind of may come to the sort of the surface if I went down there, but it's going to have to be done sooner or later. I'm going to have to face up to it because I want to go back and just sort of, I've got such great memories there and such an enjoyable time. It would be really good just to go and have a look at the training ground and maybe catch a game down there, maybe have a few jars after or something brilliant. Jobs are good. And
pop back to the pub that you said you quite often went to.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's still there. We're not in Exeter. The Barley Mow.
Barley Mow pub?
Yeah.
Now that's gone. That's literally just down the road from where I live. I literally live on the road, but it's gone now. It's turned into a co-op.
Yeah, what a shame, because I remember this is just out my imagery now. It was kind of on a crossroads, I think.
Yeah, right.
Right at the bottom of the Barley was a really big hill to get up to, wasn't there? Like you used to climb up there. And then out the Barley Mow, there's like a little row of shops with there was a Willie Hills on the end of it.
That's still there.
Yeah, William Hills, and I think there was like a news agents or something, and then there was like a Chinese takeaway on that end of the row, and then there was like a little phone box that you kind of used to drop down to that was outside the pub. So yeah, all changed, all different bits and pieces. But I used to go in something called the Valiant Soldier as well. I think it was on Cowick Street. Is that right? The Valiant.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
That's probably been for a few rebrands since.
Yes, and I used to love it down on the quayside as well. That was beautiful down there. They used to have like a couple of old nightclubs. Well, they'll probably be long gone now. One was called Volts nightclub, and then was it the Port Royal? Is that still down on the quay?
Yeah, that rings a bell. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah,
the Port Royal pub, because you used to sort of like where all the flats were at one end, there was like sort of a few bars and clubs there, and then you wandered down the kind of the quayside, and you come to you wind it up and come to another pub on the left.
I think that's there. Definitely rings a bell.
Yeah.
I feel like my dad was something. So yeah, I think it is there.
Brilliant, yeah, lovely place. And like I say, that I'd be nice to sort of visit these places and stir up some memories. Like really, but the cathedral was beautiful, wasn't it? Or beautiful in Exeter. It was really nice. And like when we sort of family used to come down on occasions to watch games and sort of stay for the weekend, they loved Exeter as well. So I've got some really, really nice memories there.
Very strange that you said the Barley Mow. I literally have 5-second walk out from there. But my next question, my penultimate question, I only have one more after this. If anyone else wants to ask them, I'll give them the stage. Is just talking about the current managers. Obviously, you've touched on Exeter, but what about Man United? What about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? What are your views on him? Obviously, some people want him to stay, some people want him to go. What do you think? Yeah,
I think it's a bit of a mix, really. I think the supporter base seems to be a bit split at the moment. But my view, I think he's done well. You look at his records; they've won plenty of games, and I think the elusive trophy is the big one for Ole. If they can get that over the line, I think that it's like Fergie, isn't it? Almost like you talk about history repeating itself. Maybe there was questions over Sir Alex from 86 to 90. He got an FA Cup over the line, and then they went on to like 1991 European Cup Winners' Cup, and then picked the Premier League up 92-93 season, and then it just boomed from there. So I think it's like light in the blue touch paper. I think once that first trophy is delivered, success can buy you time But at the moment, I think a few people are still a bit sceptical on whether he's the man for the job. But I think he's done okay so far. And I think, like I say, you look at the record, I think the data reads quite well. You know, if you say like whatever it is, played a substantial amount of games, he's won quite a substantial amount of games. There's been a few draws, a few horrible losses in there. Semi-finals, I think they lost 3 last season, which was really disappointing. But I think the chances are that he's going to sign a new contract. I think that's been sort of reported in the media over this last few days. But I think he deserves a little bit more time because it's like anything else. You know, jobs take time to sort of sow in your harvest and then reaping the harvest. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to bring some players in, and so I think he's doing okay. So I'm probably in the Ole in camp at the moment. I know a lot of United fans are in the Ole out, unfortunately. So that's what the game's all about. It's all opinions and views, isn't it? So you know, pay your money and take your choice.
I'm in the Ole in camp as well. I mean, as you said earlier, you said there was, if I remember rightly, you said there was people with like chanting about Fergie being out when he first came, and then look what happened with him. So I know modern football has moved on, and you don't have that sort of time anymore that Fergie was given. But I do think that Ole personally is going down the right tracks. But from one controversial thing to the other, I'm not sure if you looked at it. You probably didn't. But last week we talked about VAR.
Yeah.
It can't. Obviously, you're an ex-footballer. We have to talk about VAR in one instance or not. What's your views on that?
Again, it's split, Ollie, isn't it? You've got the correct decision getting made, haven't you? So from a factual perspective, it's accurate, but it's creating havoc, isn't it, in relation to flow? Like lads, girls are scoring goals now. You know, you want to celebrate, and then it's like, I've got to go to VAR, and oh no, and it's fans as well, isn't it? Like you want to go, yes, and jump over, you know, brilliant, and then VAR check. All right, just wait a minute. A few minutes, or they're given the goal. It's like the fans are not really the same again, are they? It's like it ruins the moment. So the argument in camp, factual, it's accurate. There's a lot of money in the Premier League. You know, if you miss out on relegation by a decision that went wrong, it can cause carnage. But from the game itself, from the fans and from the players scoring goals, it's disrupted that, hasn't it? So again, you know, it's either an in or an out on that respect. I think some of the decisions as well need to be looked at. Don't they? You've got basically toenails being offside, you've got fingernails being offside, and that's harsh, isn't it? So maybe the stakeholders, you know, the Football League, the Premier League, you know, they'll look at the Football Association, the Premier League, they'll look at this and see, you know, is there something we can do over the pre-season where it's like a little bit more clear cut in relation to VAR decisions? Because when VAR first came in, I thought it was like just for clear cut errors, you know, like where there'd been an error, but now it's like fingernails, isn't it? So it's like, for me, it's kind of changed its shape a little bit from the original. It's just been brought into check penalties or handballs or, you know, or fouls in the area. It's just checking, like, you know, it's minute to everything now. It's just tiny percents, isn't it? So we'll see what happens with VAR. A lot of fans are probably not very happy with it at the moment, are they?
It's exactly what we said. It technically is factually true what's going on, but at the end of the day, it's kind of ruining the sport in many people's opinions. Thank you for coming on. It's been great. A massive insight into sort of the life of an actual footballer and seeing sort of the life that they have afterwards. So thank you for coming on.
No worries. Enjoyed it, Oliver. Thanks for inviting me on, and you know, keep well done to you guys as well. Your questions were great there, and I've really enjoyed answering like some of your stuff that you've thought about and put over. So, you know, well done to you.
Thank you. Yeah, but thank you to you anyway for coming on. You didn't have to do it, and I know we've taken up quite a bit of time. So thank you, for coming on. It's been great. Cheers.
No problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.